The person who doesn't know where his next dollar is coming from usually doesn't know where his last dollar went. Having extra money in the bank can be quite useful if you're the type of person who enjoys the more pleasurable parts of life. But for that to happen, you'll need to be smart with your cash. Here are 10 frugal living tips that will make you richer. Number 10. Save a little whenever you can. Depending on the kind of job you work, this may seem like a pretty difficult thing to do since our day-to-day lives require so much spending. From groceries to transportation, there seems to always be something to pay for. While this is true to an extent, it doesn't mean that we can't try to save whatever we can. Simply saving $1 a day can do wonders in the long run if we're consistent. Even though it feels like as if everywhere we turn requires our money to be spent, it doesn't mean we don't have leftovers. When was the last time you got change after paying for food or groceries? It probably happens more often than you realize. While this change can be useful for other expenses, it won't hurt to set aside a few dollars for later. It may feel like a lot in the moment, but you'll thank yourself for putting those quarters and dollars in your savings account later when you need it. Number 9. Don't buy the latest. Advertisers and the media tend to push us to believe that we need to get our hands on whatever has just been released as soon as it's out. While in the moment it may seem as if you're being left behind if you don't purchase the latest iPhone, AirPods, or other gadget, in the long run you may thank yourself for not blowing cash on such items, especially if the ones that you have are perfectly fine and can still be used. Getting an upgrade can feel good, but it's not always completely necessary, especially when you're on a tight budget. It would be wiser to save that money for later so that you can have it for bigger purchases. That way, the next time a new phone from your favorite brand is released, you won't feel a pinch in your pocket if you decide to buy it, since you have had lots of money saved up from avoiding spending plenty in the past when you didn't have enough to spend. It's all about planning for the future. Number 8. Sell what you don't need. This one probably sounds a little strange, since most people don't consider themselves a salesperson or don't believe that they have anything worth selling. But you'd be surprised by the amount of things you own that might be in good condition, but you just don't use them anymore. If you're the type of person who has phases, then this is your go-to strategy to increase your wealth. Ever had a baking phase where you purchased specific baking appliances that you no longer use? Sell them on Craigslist or Facebook. Had a YouTuber phase that you're not interested in anymore? Sell your microphone and camera too. Got a smartphone that you're no longer using? Do the same thing. It doesn't have to be anything big. As long as it's in more or less good condition, someone would be willing to buy it. You just have to use the right words when selling. The amount of people lining up to purchase your stuff just may shock you. There are more people looking for things that you don't have a need for than you think. Number 7. Don't spend if you don't have to. As mentioned earlier, it often seems as if we have expenses lined up everywhere we turn as we move through life. While this is kind of a fact, it's probably not as true as you think. There are some things that we spend our money on that we don't actually have to, and if we make the conscious choice to go without certain things for a few months or even a year, the amount of money that'd be piled up in our bank accounts after doing this would definitely be worth it. Yes, it's nice to treat yourself with a little outing, and by buying certain snacks to munch on whenever you're hungry now and then. But if you cut out these expenses for a period of time, you'd actually be saving quite a bit. It may sound like too much to handle now, but just know that it won't be forever. Try going a few months without extra small expenses like seeing a movie or buying an outfit you saw in the window of a store. Leave that money in your bank account instead and watch it pile up. It won't be forever, but the results would last for much longer than the time you spent without those extra treats. It'll all make more sense in the long run when you find yourself having more cash to spend on other things when your savings increase drastically due to the sacrifice. Number 6. Eat in, not out. This ties into number 7, but it's more specific to food. It doesn't seem like much when you spend $4 on a Big Mac for lunch every day, but if you count the amount that spending this comes up to at the end of the month, it's actually quite a lot. While fast food is convenient and cheap and can be consumed now and then when you're in a hurry, if you continuously purchase these meals through your everyday life, you'd actually be spending a lot of money. The same goes for coffees and other food and drinks that seem appealing and cheap while you're out and about. Cutting back on spending money on these foods will definitely put you at an advantage in terms of increasing your wealth, but it comes at a cost. Though that cost isn't literal, it still might be seen as a disadvantage to some. Instead of going out to eat or buying foods outside of your home, you'd have to make use of the ingredients in your refrigerator and cupboards by cooking your own food. Just like most people make their own breakfast, you'd have to make your own lunch instead of relying on fast foods out of the house. This will definitely add to your savings and make you wealthier, so take note of this tactic too. Number 5. Utilize your skills to make extra. We've heard time and time again that the secret to wealth or to becoming rich is to not only have one source of income, but several sources of income. If your 9 to 5 doesn't pay enough for you to live luxuriously, then you have the option of using whatever skills you have to add to the amount you make in a month. Some people believe that they don't have any notable skills that anyone would want to pay them for, but that's not true. Looking up a recipe online and baking several cupcakes isn't that hard, and there are lots of people with a sweet tooth who'd be quite interested in buying a delicious cupcake from you once you say that you're selling them. If you can write, you can try offering your services to online platforms like Upwork and Fiverr. This doesn't just go for writing though. People who are good at digital art, marketing, creating spreadsheets, video editing, making voiceovers, and much more are able to make extra cash through these websites. And if you're good enough at what you do, you can charge extra and make a living out of those skills. But for now, just consider this as an option. So use your skills to put some extra cash in your pocket. You won't regret it. Number 4. Keep track of expenses. With all the things that require spending, it's sometimes hard to keep track. Lots of people also end up wondering where some of their money goes once they look into their bank accounts. That's why keeping track of your expenses is important. You can do this through a spreadsheet or a Word document, whatever is most comfortable for you. Looking closely at the things you spend your money on can give you a clear idea of what you may need to cut out from your spending list, or can even give you a heads up if anything fishy is happening with your money. If you follow where your cash is going and find out that you have less in your account than you should, then you may want to look into that. Hackers and scammers do exist, so try to be careful. Sometimes we also spend a great deal on certain subscriptions that we're probably not interested in anymore. If you follow your expenses and realize that you're giving money to a program that you no longer have interest in, then you can go ahead and unsubscribe to it so you can save that extra cash. Number 3. Wait before purchasing. A lot of people follow the practice of buying things that they really want as soon as they get paid, because after getting paid is the only time that they have the money to purchase such items. But this may not be wise in certain instances, because you'd be cutting down your savings quite a bit as soon as the money comes into it. Waiting another month or two after seeing an item that you want quite badly will probably feel painful, but it might be better to wait than to use up your money right after it enters your account. If you wait a couple of months and follow the other strategies to be richer during those months, then when those 2 months are over and you come to the same store to purchase the same item, you won't feel as much of a strain on your pocket when buying it. Also, waiting a bit before buying things can be a great idea because a lot of items go down in cost over time. Number 2. Be careful with belongings. People spend a lot of money on repairs for broken gadgets, cars, and house appliances. While most of the time it's not our faults that our belongings become damaged, we can try to be more careful with them to avoid those costs. Many of us take our phones and laptops with us everywhere, and oftentimes they slip out of our grasp. Try to clutch onto them a bit tighter to avoid this happening so you won't need to take them to a repairman. It's a small thing to consider, but it can go a long way when you're saving. If you've enjoyed it so far, please like this video and leave a comment. What is your best way to save money? Number 1. Always have savings for emergencies. Having emergency savings can take the strain off your regular savings if you need a large sum of money urgently. While your general savings can be used for daily expenses and possible luxurious purchases, when you get to that point, your emergency savings will only be used when you absolutely need to spend a lot on something. This side cash can also save you from possibly being in debt, if you would have needed to take a loan out to pay a lot of money for something dire. In everyday life, you might not see the point of having a large sum of untouched cash in a separate account when you could be using it to pay bills and other expenses. But in the unlikely case of an emergency, it will indeed come in handy and take the strain off of your regular savings, so you won't have to worry about how you'll afford everyday items after paying.